Good morning. In my years of practice, I've often found that the most profound connections can happen when we least expect them, bridging distances we never thought possible. I'm reminded of a remarkable story I came across not long ago, a story about a young leader and an esteemed artist that illustrates this beautifully. It began with a simple telephone call, but what unfolded was a powerful testament to the human spirit that touched people all over the world. On a quiet evening in the capital city of America, the nation's president, Captain Moussa Diallo, sat, holding the phone, looking at a number that his aide had just dialed. At the other end of the line was Ms. Eleanor Vance, the celebrated actress whose profound grace and resilience had been a source of inspiration for him since he was a small child. He paused for a beat, his heart racing. This was more than a phone call. It was a chance to offer his gratitude, not just as a head of state, but as the little boy who once sat on a packed earth floor, watching her films on a flickering screen and learning the meaning of dignity from her performances. When Ms. Vance's gentle voice finally answered with a simple, "Hello?" Captain Diallo felt the words catch in his throat. He took a breath and then began. "Good evening, Ms. Vance. My name is Moussa Diallo. I don't believe you can know what you have meant to me throughout my life." There was a brief silence, and then her soft reply came. "Why, my dear boy, what a lovely way to begin a conversation." What neither of them realized was that someone in the room was recording this exchange, and the world was about to witness a moment that would bring millions to tears. Captain Diallo cleared his throat, working to steady his voice. "Ms. Vance," he said, "you do not know me, but when I was a boy in the Republic of Kembra, we had very little. Some nights, there was no food to eat. But my mother, somehow, she would find a way for us to watch films. And that is where I saw you." Ms. Vance did not interrupt. She simply listened, her breathing slow and measured. "You carried yourself with such strength, such pride. Even when the characters you played were meant to be broken on screen, you never bent. You taught me something that no one else had. That dignity is not something that is given to you. It is something you choose." On the other side of the world, Ms. Vance's hand trembled slightly as she held the phone closer to her ear. "I have held on to that lesson every single day," the captain continued, his voice now thick with emotion. "When my people asked me to guide them through the most difficult period of their lives, I thought of you, and I chose to stand tall." A long moment of silence passed. Then Miss Vance whispered, her own voice beginning to break, "Oh, my sweet child." She couldn't finish her thought because at that moment her tears communicated everything that words could not. In the small studio in Amara, where the call was being recorded for archival purposes, no one moved. Even the sound engineers were frozen in place, their eyes wet as they listened to the young leader pour out his heart. Ms. Vance's quiet sobs could be heard faintly over the speaker. Captain Diallo went on, his voice lower now but firm. "I wanted you to know," he said, "that your life had a reach far beyond anything you could have seen. You gave a poor little boy on the other side of the world the courage to have dreams. And today, in everything I do, I try to act with the same grace that you showed to all of us." Ms. Vance finally found her voice, speaking in a near whisper. "You have given me more than I ever gave to the world, Moussa. You have reminded me why I did it all in the first place." Captain Diallo smiled through his own tears, the weight of his own words seeming to hang in the air between them. Unbeknownst to both, the video of their conversation had already been leaked to the internet. As thousands began to watch, the comments started to pour in. "I have never cried so hard in my life. This is what true humanity looks like. We need more leaders like Captain Diallo." And this was only the beginning of their story. By the next morning, the clip of the captain's phone call had become a global phenomenon. It started with just a few hundred views, shared by someone on social media who had written, "This young African leader just told Eleanor Vance how she changed his life. Have tissues ready before you watch." From there, it spread everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. News anchors from around the world played the recording of Captain Diallo's voice saying, "You taught me dignity as chosen." People began sharing their own stories of how Ms. Vance's strength had inspired them. Others posted about their deep respect for the captain's humility. Tears as they watched Ms. Vance whisper back, "Oh, my sweet child." In Los Angeles, Ms. Vance's assistant knocked softly on her door. "Ms. Vance, you are trending worldwide." The actress simply smiled through her own tears and said, "It's not me they are seeing. It's his heart they are feeling." And she was correct. The world was beginning to see Captain Diallo, not just as a political figure, but as a man with a profound soul. Meetings, Captain Diallo returned to his office to find a sealed envelope on his desk. It was from Ms. Vance. Inside was a handwritten note. "Dear Moussa, the words you spoke to me yesterday are words I have waited my entire life to hear. You have reminded me that every tear I shed on screen, every quiet stand I took, was not in vain. You have given me something no award ever could: peace, hope, and love. You are my legacy now. Carry it with pride, and never stop walking tall. With all my heart, Eleanor." Captain Diallo's fingers tightened around the paper, his eyes growing moist. He closed his office door, sat at his desk, and for a long moment simply let the tears come. All the pain, the immense pressure of leading a wounded nation, the fear of failure for once, he allowed himself to feel it all. And when he finally looked up, a quiet smile was on his face. Because now he wasn't just carrying the weight of his people, he was carrying her legacy, too. That evening, he surprised everyone when he walked into the state television studio and asked to make a live statement for a few minutes. The news anchor scrambled to introduce him as the cameras began to roll. The captain sat quietly, his hands folded, his eyes still wet but steady. He held up Ms. Vance's letter. "I want all of you to see what true strength looks like," he said. "This woman taught me how to hold my head high when the world seemed to want me to bow." He paused, his breath catching. "She reminded me yesterday that our scars have meaning, that our stories have power, and that we must never, ever stop walking tall." A single tear traced a path down his cheek on live television. The room was silent, the camera zoomed in, and millions of viewers across the nation and around the world wept with him. On social media, one comment seemed to capture the moment perfectly. "Captain Diallo doesn't just lead his people, he leads their hearts, and ours." And as it turned out, the most emotional part of this story was still yet to come. The morning after his heartfelt speech, Captain Diallo awoke to his phone buzzing incessantly. He rubbed his tired eyes and began to look at his messages. There were thousands of them. "You are what the world needs. You gave all of us hope last night, Mr. President. Your tears gave us permission to feel our own." The hashtags Walk Tall and Eleanor Vance were trending across all platforms. Shared clips of his trembling voice and the tears sliding down his cheek during the live broadcast. One woman in Chicago wrote, "For the first time in years, I believe in a leader again. Thank you, Captain Diallo." In Los Angeles, Ms. Vance's assistant showed her the outpouring of love that was flooding the internet for both of them. Captain Diallo placed his phone down quietly, but deep inside, a question began to trouble him. Was he truly strong enough to carry all of this love, all of this hope, and not disappoint them? Himself standing even taller. That afternoon, he left the presidential palace without his usual security detail. He needed some air. He needed to think. He walked through the streets of Amara in silence, unnoticed at first, but then a small boy saw him. The market, students, mothers with infants on their backs. They stopped what they were doing and simply watched as he passed. One by one, they began to walk with him. No one spoke a word. The silence itself was more eloquent than any speech. By the time he reached the main city square, hundreds of people were trailing behind him, walking with a quiet dignity that mirrored his own calm determination. He stopped, turned to face the crowd, and for a long moment just looked at their faces. Tears welled in his eyes, and he said softly, "Thank you for walking with me." That one simple sentence caused everyone to cry. Phones emerged, recording yet another moment the world would not soon forget. Captain Diallo felt what leadership truly meant, walking with your people, not just in front of them. That evening, just as the sun was setting, his private phone rang. It was Ms. Vance. Her voice was soft but steady. "Moussa, I saw the walk," he admitted. "I just needed to feel human for a little while." Ms. Vance chuckled quietly, though her voice wavered just slightly. "You needed to feel human, and in doing so, you made everyone else feel alive again." There was a long, comfortable silence on the line. Then her words came slowly, each one full of weight. "You are my proudest moment, Moussa. Of everything I have done in this life, you are the proof that it all mattered." His throat tightened. He tried to speak, but no words would come, and a profound understanding. The world continued to watch. The next morning, Captain Diallo sat quietly in his office, his mind still heavy with the memories of the previous night's phone call. His assistant entered, holding a yellowed envelope. "This was discovered among some old archives, sir," the assistant said. "We thought it might be of interest to you." Inside was a letter dated 1978, written by a young Eleanor Vance. It was addressed to the future child who needs to hear this. In the letter, she wrote about her struggles as a young actress, her battles with racism, and her unshakable faith that one day someone would see her work and feel brave enough to change their own world. Captain Diallo's chest tightened as he read. The letter concluded with the words, "If you are reading this, know this. You are the answer to my prayers." He put the paper down, covering his face with his hands as silent tears streamed down his cheeks. This wasn't just a coincidence. He was her answer. And now he felt a deeper sense of responsibility than ever before. That afternoon, a heavy rain began to fall over Amara. But the captain did not cancel his scheduled visit to the children's hospital. He walked in, drenched, surprising the nurses and doctors who tried to guide him to a sheltered area. "I am fine," he said softly. "Let me see the children." Faces lit up when they saw him. One little girl with large brown eyes gently tugged on his sleeve and whispered, "Are you the man from the television? The one who made the famous lady cry happy tears?" The captain's throat tightened. He smiled gently and replied, "Yes, I believe I am." The children clapped their hands weakly, some with 4 lines still in their arms. Captain Diallo stood and raised his hand as if he were making a vow, his voice strong and clear. "I will never stop fighting for you, never." The rain beat harder against the hospital windows as everyone in the ward quietly wiped their eyes. And somewhere deep within him, Captain Diallo felt something shift. It was about keeping a promise. To its future, by the end of the week, the world was watching Captain Diallo's every move. People tuned in to live broadcasts from Canberra, waiting to hear his next words. Rumors were swirling that he might step down, that he would announce something heartbreaking, that he was breaking under the immense pressure. In Los Angeles, Ms. Vance sat in her living room, her hands clasped, her eyes fixed on the television. Across the Republic of Canberra, families huddled together around their radios. On social media, millions were using the hashtag #WithDiallo. When he finally walked onto the stage, there was no applause, no noise, just an entire nation holding its breath. He looked thinner, more tired, but somehow even stronger. And then he began to speak, his words slow, his voice steady. "I know you have been waiting to hear what I will say tonight. I ask you to wait just a little longer. First, let me tell you about a little boy who once dreamed of standing tall, hearts in their throats, as Captain Diallo stood on the stage that Sunday evening. His story of the little boy who dreamed of standing tall painted vivid images in the minds of everyone watching. He spoke of walking barefoot through the dust, of nights where there was nothing to eat, of sitting on the floor of a community center watching an old black and white television and seeing Eleanor Vance for the very first time. His voice softened. "That boy you see in me." He never left. In the crowd gathered outside the palace, people wept openly, holding hands. The cameras panned to an actual little boy, barefoot in the mud, staring up at the giant screen with wide, captivated eyes. Someone took his photograph, and within minutes the image was trending globally with the caption, "He is all of us." In her Los Angeles home, Ms. Vance whispered through her tears, "Oh, my sweet, sweet child." And back on stage, Captain Diallo raised his head, feeling the weight of his people's gaze upon him. "I am still walking tall," he declared, "because you all walk with me." After the broadcast, he returned to his office, exhausted but feeling a strange sense of calm. But as he opened his door, he stopped. A boy was standing there. It was the same boy from the crowd. Security officers explained breathlessly. "He slipped through. Sir, we couldn't stop him. He said he had to see you." The captain knelt down so that they were eye to eye. "What is your name?" he asked gently. The boy clutched a crumpled piece of paper and whispered, "Kale." Captain Diallo took the paper, unfolded it, and read the shaky handwriting. "Thank you for making me feel proud to be me." The boy's lip trembled as he added, "I saw you on the television, and I want to walk tall, too." The captain's eyes filled with tears. He hugged the boy tightly, whispering, "You already are, Cale. You already are." No cameras captured this moment, but it would remain etched in his heart forever. Later that night, his private phone rang one more time. It was Ms. Vance. Her voice was faint, weaker now. "Moussa, I wanted to hear your voice one last time," she said softly. He froze, sensing a finality in her tone. She continued, "What you have done this week, what you have given to these people, the fight was worth it. You have carried my dream further than I ever could." His throat burned as he held back his own tears. "No," he said firmly, "and I will carry you forever." There was a moment of silence, then a quiet, peaceful sigh on the other end of the line, and then it went dead. He sat there in the darkness, clutching the phone, his heart breaking, but also full, because he understood now she had passed her torch to him, and he would never, ever let it fall. The next morning, the nation of Kambara held its breath. Captain Diallo had called another press conference. Cameras from all over the world were positioned outside the presidential palace. When he appeared, dressed simply, his eyes heavy but serene, you could feel the weight of the moment. He stood at the podium and held up a single white rose. "This rose," he began softly, "was sent to me this morning from Los Angeles. It was from Ms. Vance's family." A quiet gasp rippled through the crowd. "She passed peacefully last night," he continued. "Her final words to me were, 'Carry it forward.'" He placed the rose gently on the podium and added, "So today I promise my people and the world that I will carry forward her dream. A dream where dignity lives, where hope breathes, and where no one has to walk alone." The square erupted in a wave of sobs and applause, and in homes, on streets, and in hearts around the world, tears fell, because they had not just lost Eleanor Vance, they had gained the unshakable spirit she left behind, now alive in him. That evening, thousands gathered outside the palace for a candlelight vigil in her honor. Little Cale stood in the front row, holding his candle proudly. As the flames flickered in the soft night wind, Captain Diallo came down from the palace steps and knelt beside the boy. He took Cale's small hand in his and whispered, "Do you see all these lights? This is what she left for us, and this is what we must become." The boy looked up at him and said quietly, "I will walk tall, just like you." Tears stung the captain's eyes as he hugged the child, feeling the warmth of the crowd pressing in around them. And as the candles burned and the people sang, a single white rose was placed at the base of the steps. Above them, the stars sparkled in the night sky, and somewhere beyond them, it felt as if Ms. Vance was smiling down, proud. On the 7th day, Captain Diallo stood in the city square once more. This time he was not just a president, he was a son, a brother, and a father to his people. The crowd chanted his name as he raised his hand, tears shining on his cheeks. "I will carry this forward," he said simply, "for her, for you, and for every little boy and girl who dares to dream." And then, in a deeply human moment, he turned to Cale, lifted him up onto his shoulders, and began to walk through the crowd as thousands followed, their candles lighting the way. The world watched, and the world wept, because this was not just the end of a story, it was the beginning of a legacy. If this story has moved you as much as it has moved us, please like this video to honor the memory of Eleanor Vance and the enduring spirit of Captain Diallo. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss these powerful stories that touch the soul. In the comments below, let us know, what does carrying it forward mean to you? Please share your heart with the world. Let's fill the comments with love and show everyone that we still believe in walking tall. Thank you for watching. Keep walking, keep believing. And please, don't forget to carry it forward.